Hello, good day, everyone. So right now, we are going to discuss the Third Philippine Republic. So this is the post-American era. This is after the Indo-Pacific War, or at the end, no, or after the end of the World War II. Okay, when the Japanese surrendered. So this is from 1946 to 1972. So right here, we are going to discuss the different challenges that we have faced after the Indo-Pacific War, and the challenges of the presidents, during the Third Philippine Republic. So after the war, the Commonwealth was restored pending complete independence. So with independence from the US came the establishment of the Third Republic of the Philippines. The government of the independent republic was riddled with graft and corruption and lost the confidence of the people. The people was really frustrated because the Americans really set high standards when it comes to government. During the Great Depression, all around the world no are experiencing financial drought, hunger. Okay, so uh, though it's the Great Depression, Philippines has a contingency budget. No, even during the Great Depression, Philippines are still kanang have enough food, no, to feed the whole country, and the money is still not so scarce that it is still enough, no, na the Philippines can still function, no, with regards to the economy. Now, during the Third Philippine Republic, nawala na siya nga trust, no, towards the government. Okay? So the corruption within the government also resulted in the rise of the left in the forms of the hook balahap or the hooks. So the hooks presented even more problems to the republic. So the hook balahap existed even after the end of the Indo-Pacific War. Okay? So their goal somehow changed a little bit, okay? Considering that they are no longer fighting the Japanese. So they are already going against with the government. So we have here our first president of the ano he is the fifth president of the Philippines, but he is the first president of the Third Philippine Republic. So that his term is from 1946 to 1948. Okay. So he was inaugurated on July 4, 1946, the day the US government granted political independence to its colony. So let's go directly with his achievements. So his greatest achievements, namely the ratification of the Bill Trade Act, the inclusion of the parity amendment in the Constitution, and the signing of the 1947 Military Bases Agreement. So he was the one who started the Military Bases Agreement here in the Philippines. The rehabilitation and reconstruction of war-ravaged Philippines. So he put a lot of budget into the restoration of the roads, the bridges, the facilities, no, that was destroyed during the war, and also the improvement of the ruined economy. And he adopted the pro-American policy. Okay, obviously because it was still very fresh. Okay, coming from the Commonwealth government, it's not surprising, no, that Manuel Rojas adopted a pro-American policy because we came from, our government system is coming from the Americans. No, they built our government system. The problems, no, that he experienced during his term is the graft and corruption in the government, as evidenced by the surplus of war property and war property scandal and the Chinese immigration quota scandal, and also the school supplies scandal. Okay, and he also failed to check the communist hook movement or the hook balahaps. He was not able to put an end, no, to the menace of the hook balahaps. And we're not going to go into details onto what are these kind of kung ano kanang in the details of the quota scandal, the school supply scandal. Um, just give it a thought na murabag there is a corruption happening in his government, though he is not no the culprit, but he could not control no his own government officials, that these government officials are stealing money from the public or from the public funds. Okay. So next president, he is the second president of the Third Philippine Republic. His name is Elpidio Rivera Quirino. Okay. So let's go directly into his achievements. Okay. So the two main objectives of his administration, number one is the economic reconstruction of the nation. Okay, so almost all of the presidents were looking to um, find a way no, to restore economic productivity or the flourishing of industrialization, just like what they experienced during the American occupation. And then another objective is the restoration of the faith and confidence of the people in the government. Because as I've said, no, or in the PowerPoint, the people really lost confidence and trust towards the government because of the graft and corruption issues that has been consistent, dude, all throughout. So he created PACSA, President's Action Committee on Social Amelioration. Another is he created ACCFA, the Agricultural Credit Cooperatives Financing Administration, and the Excellence in Foreign Relations. So here, the ACCFA is one of the movement of the president again, Elpidio Quirino, to somehow achieve no the restoration of economic productivity, no that was experienced during the American occupation, and excellence in foreign relations. So he was really good at maintaining foreign relationship. Okay, so problems, well, there are a lot. No? So lack of funds. Okay, the lack of funds during this time. They have a lot of programs that are good, no, for the people, but they could not finance it. Okay, so almost all of it were just kind of propositions, but little were realized because of the lack of funds. The hook problems, terrorism, and disruption of peace and order. So another is graft and corruption in his government. Though no, his goal is to uh, restore no the faith and confidence of the people, but he could not steal. No, just like Rojas, he failed to put an end to the issue with the graft and corruption in his government. So as revealed in the Tambobong Buenavista scandal, the import control anomalies, the Caledonia pile mess, and the textbook racket. Okay? So another is the wasteful spending of the people's money in extravagant junkets abroad. Okay? So he's like Marcos as well, no, who likes to travel abroad. And failure of government to check the hook menace, which made travel in the provinces unsafe, as evidenced by the killing of former First Lady Aurora Quezon and her companions on April 21, 1949 by the hawks of the Bungabong Baler Road, Baler Tayabas. Okay. Another is economic distress of the times, no, aggravated by the rising unemployment rate, soaring prices of commodities, and unfavorable balance of trade. So Quirino's vaunted total economic mobilization policy failed, failed to give economic relief to the suffering nation. Frauds and terrorism committed by the Liberal Party moguls in the 1947, 1949, and 1951 elections. Okay, so there were a lot of issues surrounding Elpidio Quirino. Okay, we can really see that murabag drunk by democracy or drunk by freedom yun si Elpidio Quirino, knowing that he is the one in control. There is no longer Americans that he answers to, drunk by freedom, that he has all the power in the world on how he's going to run the country. Marabag na wasteful spending ang money sa mga tao, though there are a lot of programs that needs to be funded, but he likes to travel abroad and wasteful spending. So naagid siya. The third president of the Third Philippine Republic is Ramon del Fierro Magsaysay. He is the 7th president of the Philippines. So his term is from 1953 to 1957. So he is known as the president of the masses. So we try to look at his achievements. Agrarian reform. So established the National Resettlement and Rehabilitation Administration, or NARA, to resettle residents and landless farmers, and it was particularly aimed at rebel returnees, providing home lots and farmlands in Palawan and in Mindanao. And because of this, he was able to put an end to the Hawks menace, because of the agrarian reform. So if they are going to surrender their arms and like for example, if there is a member of the Hawks who is willing to surrender, the government is willing to give them farmlands, for them to start their own life. So he is also regarded as a savior of democracy in the Philippines, man of masses, and he stopped the Hawk Communist Rebellion. Okay, so no, from the previous presidents and from the previous administration failed, no? So siya ray nakapastop sa Hawks menace. He improved the conditions of the barrios. He constructed roads, bridges, irrigation canals, and constructed roads, bridges. He established the SIETO, or the Southeast Asia Treaty Organization, and imposed high moral standard for public officials. So problems, during his term is the impending projects. There are still a lot of projects that needs to be funded, but still walay enough money, lack of enough funds, and then the graft and corruption. Though it's not Magsaysay doing the activity, but because he is the president, he still he failed to keep in check his government officials doing graft and corruption. Okay. Next president is Carlos Polistico Garcia. He is the 8th president and 4th president of the Third Philippine Republic. Okay. So known for his Filipino First policy. Okay, so he prioritized the well-being of the Filipino businessmen, na instead of 50% kanang owned by a foreign investor, it should be more than 50% by the Filipino compared to the foreigners, since the business is run here in the country. So that's the Filipino First policy by Carlos Polistico Garcia. Okay. So Ramon Magsaysay, by the way, did not finish his term. He died. Okay, so that's why Ramon Magsaysay Garcia, or Carlos Polistico Garcia, assumed the presidency the day after Ramon Magsaysay's death. After Garcia finished magsaysay's term, he was elected, no, as a president of his own right. Okay. So successes, no, of each president after their term. So the Filipino first policy put the rights of Filipinos above those foreigners. So this favored the Filipino businessmen in contrast to foreign investors. So this meant foreigners could invest capital up to 40% only in business or industry, while the remaining 60% would be owned by Filipino citizens. Garcia's policies aimed at boosting the economy and obtaining greater economy independence. Garcia also aimed at reviving old Filipino cultural traditions, which might have become extinct as the result of the adoption of Spanish and American cultures through colonialization. So Garcia, he is the first president to put value, no, on Philippine culture, na before Spanish and American colonialization and Japanese occupation, who are we as a Filipinos? Okay, so he started that movement. So the problems that he experienced during his term is the graft and corruption, locks of treasury funds, huge national debt, and impending projects. Still, no, it's still very consistent. Graft and corruption, impending projects, lack of fund, and the huge national debt. Okay, the borrowing of money. So Garcia ran for president again in the 1961 elections but lost to Vice President Diosdado Macapagal, no, on June 1, 1971. So Garcia was elected delegate of the 1971 Constitutional Convention and chosen as the president. So he died 2 weeks later from a heart attack. Now, the next president or the fifth president of the Third Philippine Republic is Diosdado Pangan Macapagal. He is a poor boy from Lubao. Okay? So let's look at his presidency. Okay? So during his term, Macapagal fought to suppress graft and corruption within the government and also tax evasion. He also aimed to stimulate the economy and place the peso in the free currency exchange market, and which he did, encouraging the wealthiest families to invest. And Macapagal also passed the Land Reform Bill, which freed many farmers from slavery as tenant farmers. Okay, so this is also the reason, personally, this is just a personal story. This is also the reason why my grandfather were granted 10 hectares of land. Okay, so right now, owned by my, the siblings of my mother. So, mao na ang yuta na ilahang naan nila karon. Okay, coming from the Land Reform Bill of Diosdado Macapagal. We have also Mapilendo, Malaysia, the Philippines, and Indonesia through a foreign policy. So he is also one of the founder. So this paved way for the creation of the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or the ASEAN. Okay? So it was Macapagal who changed the Independence Day to June 12 from July 4, which is the first celebrations commemorating independence from Spain were held in 1962. Okay? So among the most significant achievements of Macapagal as president were the abolition of tenancy and accompanying land reform program in the Agricultural Land Reform Code of 1963. In 1971, he was elected president of the Constitutional Convention that drafted what became the 1973 Constitution. Okay, so problems during his term, we have acute problem in unemployment, widespread mass poverty, still very consistent graft and corruption problem, lack of treasury funds. A number his reforms were blocked by the nationalista dominated Senate and House of Representatives just because they are on the opposite side of the political party rivalries. Okay? So that's for Diosdado Pangan Macapagal. So next, no, to Diosdado Pangan Macapagal is the sixth president of the Third Philippine Republic. A very controversial person or president is Ferdinand Emmanuel Edralin Marcos. So he served 1965 to 1986. So Marcos was very cruel, though there are a lot of kanang loyalists would say that Marcos have done a lot to the country compared to the previous president that came before him. But if you try to look at no how many years Marcos stayed in power, obviously mag-expect gyud ta nga daghan gyud siya ma-finish nga or mabuhat for the Philippines because he stayed in power from 1965 up until to 1986. Okay? So lain na sad kaayog maghigdaay ra siya diha. So obviously being a president is also a job. So it is expected. Huh? So here, he was really known as a wonder boy, a boy who has a lot of potential. No, he has a lot of kanang achievements as a military, as also in politics. Okay. So here, early political career. So he was a congressman for 3 terms and senator, served as a minority floor leader before gaining the Senate presidency. So established a record for having introduced a number of significant bills, many of which found their way into the Republica statute books. So plans for economic development during his first term. So this is on his first term in 1965 to 1969. So immediate construction of roads, bridges, and public works, which included 16,000 kilometers of feeder roads, some 30,000 lineal meters of permanent bridges. So a generator with an electric power capacity of 1 million kilowatts, water services to 8 regions and 38 localities, revitalization of the judiciary, the national defense posture, and the fight against smuggling, criminality, and graft and corruption in the government. Mobilize the manpower and resources of the Armed Forces of the Philippines or AFP for action to complement civilian agencies. And he also hired technocrats, a highly educated person, to form part of the cabinet. And it was during his first term that the North Diversion Road or the North Luzon Expressway was constructed with the help of the AFP, AFP Engineering Construction Battalion. And during also the Vietnam War, over 10,450 Filipino soldiers were sent to South Vietnam under the designation of the PhilCAAG or Philippine Civil Affairs Assistance Group. Okay. So during the first term of Marcos, he did really well. Okay? He was known for kanang an agent for industrialization. Okay? Because he built bridges, he built roads. Okay? Now because of that, the agricultural crops are easily transported to the buyers. Okay? So now farmers are able to sell their products, their raw materials easily, no, because of that. And aside from that, because of transportation, easy access to different cities, to different provinces, all because of those the projects of Marcos. Okay. So on his second term in 1969 to 1972, he was re-elected no because of his impressive performance. But this is also the start of his fall because he was blinded or corrupted by power. Okay? So as they said no na power corrupts the best and attracts the worst. So Marcos is not the worst. He is the best, but he was corrupted by power. Okay? In 1969, the Philippines experienced higher inflation rate and devaluation of the Philippine peso. It's bad. Okay? Now, the oil-producing Arab countries decided to cut back oil production in response to Western military aid to Israel in the Arab-Israeli conflict, so resulting in higher fuel prices worldwide. So the communal violence in Mindanao resulted in 100,000 refugees, burning of hundreds of homes, and the death of hundreds of Christians and Muslims in Cotabato and Lanao. Also created a lot of problem to the administration. An economic crisis brought by external and internal forces, arrested and radicalized studentry demanding reforms in the educational system, a rising tide of criminality, subversion by the reorganized communist movement, and a session in the South. And also on August 21, 1971, following the bombing of the Liberal Party proclamation rally in Plaza Miranda, President Marcos issued Proclamation 889 suspending the privilege of the writ of habeas corpus. Okay? So but there were also investigations that during the bombing of the Plaza Miranda, it was a stage bombing, no? Coming from, so meaning when you say stage, the one who's responsible is the government. Okay, so the one behind that is Marcos. So he was trying to create kanang a certain insecurity to the public to create a public sentiment so that he could justify his martial law implementation. Okay? Now, the martial law and the new society. So there is a separate discussion for martial law, but we will not go deeper with regards to the details about martial law. We're just going to focus on the slide. So he said, no, on January 1973, Ferdinand Marcos said, "It is easier perhaps and more comfortable to look back to the solace of a familiar and mediocre past. But the times are too grave and the stakes are too high for us to permit the customary concessions to traditional democratic process." There, that's already a message telling to the people that he is implementing martial law. So Marcos declared martial law on September 21, 1972 by virtue of Proclamation 1081, Marcos ruling by decree, curtailed press freedom and other civil liberties, closed down Congress and media establishments, and ordered the arrest of opposition leaders and militant activists. Okay? So, all those who opposed Marcos was arrested. So, he closed down the media. He controlled almost all of the contents that was circulated during his term. Okay? And the Congress was also closed down. So, he has taken all the power. No? The power of the Congress was transferred to him in the implementation of the martial law. Okay? So the Constitutional Convention in 1970 to replace the colonial 1935 Constitution. So the new Constitution went into effect in early 1973, changing the form of government from presidential to parliamentary and allowing Marcos to stay in power beyond 1973. Okay? So in the third term, the Fourth Republic, okay, so June 16, 1981, 6 months after the lifting of the martial law. So this is already when martial law was lifted. Okay, so the first presidential election in 12 years was held. And as expected, President Marcos ran and won a massive victory over the other candidates. But it was said not to be staged again. But no one would dare to question. In 1983, Benigno Aquino Jr., was assassinated at the Manila International Airport upon his return to coalesce popular dissatisfaction with Marcos and began a succession of events, including pressure from the United States. So the Philippine economy suffered a great decline after the Aquino assassination in August 1983. Because as capitalists, um, or as a businessman, no, you would not invest in a country that there are a lot of political instability. So you would look to put your money in a country who has a very stable political environment. Okay? So during that time, the political environment here in the Philippines is very chaotic. There were a lot of killings, salvaging, people are kuan ka ng, people are lost and never to be found, okay, type of scenario. And the economy experienced negative economic growth beginning in 1984 and continued to decline despite the government's recovery efforts. So rampant graft and corruption within the government and by Marcos lack of credibility. So there was no enough transparency with how the money was spent. No? There was no audit. Marcos himself diverted large sums of government money to his party's campaign funds. So the unemployment rate ballooned from 6.30% in 1972 to 12.55% in 1985. So this is the downfall of Marcos. Rampant corruption, political mismanagement by his relatives and cronies, having looted billions of dollars from the Filipino treasury, notorious nepotist appointing family members and close friends to high positions in his cabin. Philippine government today is still paying interest on more than 28 billion public debts incurred during his administration alone. So Marcos' health deteriorated rapidly due to kidney ailments. So Marcos called the snap presidential election for 1986 with more than a year left in his term. And then the final tally of the National Movement for Free Elections, an accredited poll watcher showed Aquino winning by almost 800,000 votes. However, the government tally showed different. So Marcos winning by almost 1.6 million votes. So because of that, it created again another distrust, another frustration or public sentiment to the public that Marcos was really controlling or staging everything. Okay, so popular sentiment in Metro Manila sided with Aquino, leading to a massive multi-sectoral congregation of protesters and gradual defection of the military to Aquino led by Marcos cronies Enrile and Ramos. So the people power movement drove Marcos into exile and installed Corazon Aquino as the new president. So there were a lot of legacy by the Marcos. Okay? So food sufficiency, liberalized credit, education reform, agrarian reform, primary health care, housing for the masses, energy self-reliance, export development, labor reform, unprecedented infrastructure growth, political reform, fiscal reform, peace and order. Okay, so peace and order was given considering the martial law. No? It created fear to the administration. With this one, no, unprecedented infrastructural growth. Okay, although there were a lot of infrastructural growth, Marcos is kanang using debt, no, or shall we say debt driven infrastructural growth. So when we say debt driven, if our economy could not catch up with the interest that we are paying with the national debt, with the economic productivity, if it could not catch up, no, then the unprecedented infrastructural growth could not be justified. It's not good, no, because the Philippine economy could not catch up to pay or in paying the debt, no, the borrowing of money from his administration. Okay, so that's the end of the Third Philippine Republic. So Marcos is the last president of the Third Philippine Republic. So next topic after this, I think it's the martial law. Okay, so we are going to go deeper into details as what happened no during that time. So that will be, I think, our topic when we are going to discuss na in our live meeting discussions. So hopefully next week, no, there will be no activities or whatsoever that would hinder us, no, from doing our live meetings. So see you all next week. Thank you so much for listening. Hopefully you have learned something. Okay.